All right. To the billions of people around planet Earth, Dawson Wheeler, you and I are live, sir. How in the world are you?
I'm doing great. Packing up the van. Getting
Really?
ready.
What?
Yeah, getting ready to go up to the mountains.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh, sounds great. What, you on an adventure? No.
Nah, I've got a weekend of hiking planned, so I'm gonna get out and try to do a couple of different trails this weekend over in the Joyce Kilmer and the Sitico region. So yeah, just throwing things in the van as fast as I can to get out of here.
The van life. Everybody should go check out our podcast we've done about the van life. That is so. Just before we get into while we've got the logo on our screen and something new we're going to start doing, I just want to make sure let you know something. So last night my son comes over and we have dinner together, and we're social distancing because that's what it is we do. And he tells me that he and a friend of his has planned over the next year they're going to save up and buy this $3,000 camper,
Yeah.
and then they want to pull it around a little bit. Like, not he's going to keep working, but like on weekends or take day trips, they're going to go start going to like the beach and the mountains and take these little 2-3 day jaunts in this camper. And he showed me some inside pictures of it, and of course I smiled and went, "That's that young soul, man. That's that
Yeah.
starting. It's going."
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure what looks good to him may look a little different to others, but if it'll keep him semi-dry, he'll have a great time.
Well, he kept telling me we're gonna have some hanging lights here and a
Yeah.
lamp over here, and I went, "Oh my gosh, dude, it's like a hippie stuff." All right, hey, do me a favor because we do our live videos since we've not been back in the studio. Which, real quick, by the way, go to dayfirepodcast.com because guess what's out? Our first new podcast from the studio is out right now,
Right now.
today.
Yeah.
It's a great conversation we had. But before we'll talk a little bit of that towards the end. But we've got this logo on our screen, Dawson, and I thought I
Right.
would give you the floor, sir.
Well, we've got Rock Creek Outfitters, our title sponsor with Day Fire Podcast, on with us today. We've got Josh Legg. And part of the reason that we've got Josh Legg on is that the stores have reopened themselves, and they're letting small numbers of people back into the stores. And one of the things that's very important, and as I get prepared for going out and doing a weekend of hiking, is the first thing that I go to the closet and sort out is what footwear am I going to take? And so that really depends on the terrain. If it's going to rain, do I need a boot? Do I need a shoe? A lot of times with the van, I take several choices out there with me. And so I've got my little quiver of shoes that I've put together. And I thought, what better thing is to get Josh back on. And it's the first place for anybody to start when it comes to day hiking. So, or even a backpacking trip. Happy feet, happy life when it comes to getting out on the trails. So, hey Josh, how you doing, man?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey,
Yeah, so you got the
welcome.
store back up and running, and so tell us quickly what's going on at the store. What are the hours? What's
Yeah,
all that about?
yeah. So we're back up and running. We're 11 to 6 Monday through Saturday, and then we're 1 to 6 on Sundays. And we're doing the half capacity deal, which really hasn't been much of an issue. We've got a pretty sizable square footage here at the North Shore location, so there's plenty of space to spread out, and we've got all the standards set up. Like the places to stand in line, being 6 feet apart, and we've all got our masks ready to go, and recommending that people bring their masks with them. But yeah, we're starting to see traffic pick back up, and we're really pleased with sort of the turnout in the community, and people are just, I think, looking for opportunities to treat themselves to something, maybe get a little retail therapy in, make them feel like they're doing something. And we've been over at our Riverside store. We've been seeing bikes and boats are going crazy. It's like been a record-breaking year for bike sales. We're doing the Specialized bikes over at our Riverside Drive location, and Specialized is basically sold out of a lot of stuff. We've got some things left over, but yeah, the boats, we've never seen our boat wall this empty. So I think people are just looking for something that feels fun, and I've been saying getting out of the box. We go from box to box to box. We got to get out of the box, and that's getting out on the water, getting on the trails, riding your bike around town. That's stuff you think's fun as a kid is still fun as an adult.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the positives, don't you think, is because sports and things have been put on timeout, that families have gone back to the mountains and the trail systems, both local and at a state level, and refamiliarizing themselves with some, walking, just getting out into the woods. And to that end, though, I think a lot of people, and I hear a lot of my friends talking and asking questions to me, that when they first kind of refamiliarize themselves, getting back and doing these walks, that you kind of start with what you have in the closet, and it's not
Yeah.
always the best shoe. So if you're coming into Rock Creek right now, you've had a couple of day hikes and you're starting to consider footwear, what are some of the differences, and where are some of the places to start in selecting footwear, and what do you recommend there?
Yeah, I typically just try and qualify the individual and just try and see what their average weekly usage looks like. If you're coming out of basically no miles and you're saying, I want to start hiking, I have no idea what I'm looking for, I will typically start with a little bit more protective footwear, because you may find yourself a tendency to maybe overcommit and bite off a little more than you can chew. And it just makes sense from a support point of view. I always pick up a shoe and, I can just grab something random right here. But, it's like the more flexible the footwear is, the more your foot is having to work in it. So if your foot isn't in shape, quote unquote, and is going to have to cover a lot of ground, you want to think about how much movement is going on in that shoe. And the more movement there is in the shoe from a flexibility standpoint, the more your foot's working. So that can lead to more foot fatigue. So if you grab something that's got slightly more resistance to it, that's going to actually benefit you over the long term, of while you're trying to get your feet back in shape. And there's always two sides to a coin. I could say that the alternative would be, there's this whole minimalist movement out there that's definitely not mainstream, but it is the idea that go with something with a very lightweight flexibility, and that will work out your foot. But you just have to be really careful not to start with too light of a shoe, because you could potentially uh, hurt yourself, or find yourself kind of worn out by the time you're getting done with your hike.
Well, let's take a couple of scenarios. I'm a person. I'm somewhere between 30 years old and 50 years old. I'm active in my work, so I'm getting my 5 to 10,000 steps at work a day. I get out and walk in my neighborhoods. I'm chasing my kids around if I have them. I'm walking on a river walk or pavement, or very smooth surfaces. But now I'm walking into the woods on single track trail. Where is a good what are one or two shoes that would be good recommendations for both men and women?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a couple, and really, I mean, we've got 100 shoes on the wall, but just to take a stab at a few, Oboz makes a really nice shoe. We've done really well with their hiking boots. This is their Arete Low, and this comes in men's and women's. And from a very fundamental point of view, it's just start with the off-road tread. People overlook that a lot. You need something with some grip
Yeah.
pattern. You're not slipping going downhill and uphill. It's very basic, but if it's slick on the bottom, that's a road tire. This is your off-road tire right here. So this is something that's nice and light. I mean, it's a medium weight, but it's still got a nice firm foam midsole. So it's going to give you good support, and that's just going to be easy to wear, low break-in time. And I think that's what a lot of people will look for. They don't want to get some heavy boot that they're going to have to, break in and get hot spots and, deal with that whole scenario. So that's one option, and sort of the lightweight. And ventilation is nice this time of year too, because if you get something that's full leather and waterproof going into the summer, you're definitely going to feel a temperature difference between something ventilated and a little lighter.
Oboz makes a number of models that you've got on the wall too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've probably got, between men's and women's, I maybe have 15 models of oboes sitting over here.
In the first place, I guess to start is to really come in and get your foot fitted by a professional, and that's where you guys start out of the gate, is to allow that time to sit down and go through a fitting process, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing we do is a lot of times I can identify the type of shoe somebody's going to be in just based on having seen it for so long. I can usually look at somebody's shoe and know what the fit they're going to need is. But yeah, I mean, we start with a sock conversation. So if you've got a wider foot and you've sort of been wearing these thick socks and you're having troubles with width, we may have a conversation about reducing the thickness of the sock to buy you some extra space in the shoe. But yeah, we put you on the Brannick device, measure you sitting down, standing up, seeing how much movement's in your foot, talk about the sock. We measure you with the sock on, and then, talk about some inserts, or if a lot of our customers are dealing with plantar fasciitis and things like that. So a lot of these conversations will overlap into just more general wellness for your feet, and that may include a conversation about compression socks from Sockwell or Superfeet inserts or something like that. But it is kind of a package deal. The sock, the insert, the footwear kind of all works together with your foot.
Too, the one thing that I know is, like, I've bought shoes in the past for different things, for different athletic things. So for instance, if I was playing basketball and I wanted to start running, I almost become a beginner again when I start buying footwear. Even though I know a lot about this, I got to buy new footwear I may not know about. But this is the thing I've learned at my age. It's amazing what the human being can get used to living with. So in other words, I buy a pair of shoes, I start hitting the trail. Next thing you know, the bottom of my foot hurts. I've got shin splints. Something's going on. And I just kind of learn to live with it, or just say, I'll ice it down. When in reality, if you've bought something that's worked, come back in, I would think, and let you guys look at it and kind of start the whole process again. Because you shouldn't be living with pain, because I've learned this from Dawson. It's all about enjoying the experience. If you're going out to enjoy the experience and you're not, pain is not something you should live with out there.
Yeah, totally. And I see it all the time. I'll measure somebody for a running shoe or for a hiking shoe, and then I'll see that they've got some kind of crazy elongation. When you stand up, your foot goes from a 10 to 11 and a half. And I ask, do your feet ever give you problems? And they're like, oh yeah, I live with chronic foot pain. And you're like, oh, okay, well, let's have a broader conversation about what's going on with your feet on a day-to-day basis, and maybe talk about like rehabilitation on a daily basis in conjunction with this whole let's get outside and move around in the woods.
Let's talk about another brand. So you
Yeah.
got tons of oboes. People can come in and get those and try on. But say, I'm looking around and oboes don't seem to fit my foot correctly, or I don't like the look,
Yep.
I don't like the tread pattern. What would be another recommendation you would have down at Rock Creek?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give a shout out to our friends over at Arc'teryx. There's so many brands that we can't cover, but I'm just grabbing a few. But Arc'teryx is doing some really cool footwear right now, and this sort of blurs the line between trail running and hiking. But this Norvan LD is really cool because they use a very sticky rubber outer. It's got a really firm midsole, so it's going to be very supportive over longer hiking, or if you need a little extra support, you're going to feel some arch support in this. But they've got a really nice fit, and just the details, you can't really get a good feel for it. But I mean, they just use premium finishes on all their stuff. So, the fit's nice, and Arc'teryx design aesthetic seems to be like, how much can we take out of something and still have it be a really well sculpted fitting shoe? And they hit a unique design aesthetic too, which I think is becoming a little more popular in certain demographics. But that's one that I'll just throw out real quick. And then the other one is Astral, and Astral's been doing a really cool job of making these kind of hybrid life category shoes.
I thought
They're
Astral was a water shoe. So Astral now has shoes for the trail, huh?
Well, that's sort of the cool thing about the concept for the footwear, is that it can be sort of whatever you want. It's like pick your own adventure. So, I mean, it looks like a street sneaker, and it's got sticky rubber outsole. A lot of the kayakers have been talking about 510 rubber being the stickiest on the market, and from their climbing shoe background. And then Astro got in their secret lab and developed this stuff, and it's arguably become among the stickiest. So this is a shoe that can be used on a raft if you're going to the Ocoee River. You can run in this a little bit if you wanted. I heard rumors that the product developer was running 50K in this shoe. I don't think it would be my first choice for that, but you definitely can. And then quick dry, nice and lightweight, packs down small. And I think for somebody like myself, I'm kind of attracted to this thing that can do a lot of different things. So I can hike with it, I can creek walk with it, I can wear it around town.
Well, I think about one of the trails that I just got off of up in the Smokies, up in Tremont, and you've got several creek crossings along the way, and they're non-bridged, so there is no option when you get down to Panther Creek or one of these creeks, and you've got a 25 or 45 foot, waist deep running water, kind of swift water crossing, and to have a shoe that I can hike in. But when I get down there, I know that going through that water, it's going to be stable, because I see a lot of people hiking. A lot of times they get to these creek crossings and then they want to go barefoot. Right. They take their shoe off, and then now I'm a tenderfoot. I don't walk around barefoot a lot. So for me, if I've got a day pack that weighs 15, 20 pounds on me, and now I'm kind of tiptoeing across barefoot, it's really not the safest way to do it. Yeah. And have a shoe that you can just plunk into the water, and then I assume it drains really quickly when you come out the other side. And right. Then it's going to fit well, so you're not going to get rubbing. That would be a great shoe choice for a lot of trail systems, especially around the Southeast. Well, that's true really around the country, because there's always creek crossings, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of where I discovered Astro, was on the trip to Wyoming, and there was going to be a lot of stream crossings and some fly fishing involved. And I wanted a shoe that was as comfortable in camp as it was for having a closed-toed option for walking through a lot of water. And that's where I kind of really fell in love with the brand. And one of their shoes, the Low Yak, it's a little light duty for a lot of people, but I mean, just the packability from a travel perspective, fold down heel to slide into it like a camp shoe, sticky rubber with the razor siping on the outsole. It's that type of thing. And just the little bit of toe protection from going barefoot or from wearing an open toe shoe goes a long way. Because it's one crooked toe in between a rock, or cutting your toe open while you're doing a stream crossing on some glass or something. As much as we'd like to pretend it's not a problem around here, you do find a little trash in the waterways from time to time. So, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Now, say I come in and I've had ankle issues over time. I'm nervous about the possibility about being off camber, rocky terrain, and I might sprain an ankle. And so, I mean, I know you guys would talk about trekking poles and things like that as well, but while we stay with footwear, in the high top world, or what we call a boot, do you have some recommendations in light hikers that would go over the ankle?
Yeah. Let me grab one over here real quick.
Yeah, I took myself off the screen because I want to see what he's doing instead of seeing my face up there nodding and smiling. All right, I'm leaving the screen again. You're back with product.
I think while you're here, Clint, one of the things with over the ankle, I love low cut. I've been a boot guy forever and a day, but then I got converted because at some points I try to fast hike and kind of jog. I wouldn't call myself a runner, a trail runner, but it's nice to be in that low cut. But when I'm walking at length, I do like that coverage of a boot over the ankle. And so, I don't know. Do you walk in a boot?
Talking to me, yeah. Well, see, here's the issue that I have. I would probably be one of his best clients if I came in and followed his advice, because I have a pair of boots that are my all-purpose boots that I use for everything outside. And sometimes it works out great, but I'm listening to you guys talk, and there's times when I use that big old boot that I have and my feet hurt and my ankles hurt. And then the next thing you know, my knees are kind of hurting, and I'm listening going, it probably would be pretty good if I just came in and let Josh, work his magic and say, when you're doing this kind of hiking, because I like to go to waterfalls. And if you're going to do this kind of thing, use this kind of shoe. Because again, as I get old, I've learned to live with pain. And that's where that question came from, because I shouldn't learn to do that. I do like something that covers my ankle, though. Absolutely.
What do you got for us, Josh?
Yeah, so I just grabbed a couple here. This is the Vasque Breeze LT, and this was developed with fast hiking sort of in mind. But I think, to your point, kind of the high top does a couple things. It reinforces any over rotation in your ankle if you're on off camber terrain, like you're saying. It's got nice stability in the midsole too, so it flexes and it feels like a trail running shoe, but you get that higher protection. And the thing I like about the higher protection around the ankle is you're kind of exposed up here, and if you're planning on pushing it a little bit and getting tired, you have a tendency to sort of lose your form and start kicking yourself randomly, or if you're sort of trudging along and you've got some rocky area or rooty area, this just gives you that little bit of extra protection, not only from yourself but from the terrain, keeping your ankle bones protected with a little bit of padding, because one wrong kick, it doesn't feel great. And yeah, so that's one. And kind of a step up would be like this Salewa Mountain Trainer Light. This is a really cool boot because it feels very capable. It's got this really nice rugged outsole. This starts getting into the backpacking category a little bit, or I have a lot of people who are looking for a waterproof boot and they just want the ankle height to protect them from going into water up to here. So, where you have a little less protection from a waterproof shoe that's a low cut, you get a little more here, and this gives you nice ankle support as well. So those are just two examples.
I'm glad go ahead.
No, I was just going to say something aesthetically. I like that boot. The tread on it reminds me of the tires I had on my truck. I like that. It kind of looked, I did the man thing, when you started doing it, I was like, that appeals to the male DNA a little bit in me.
Well, I think for our listeners too, the thing about the Salewa boot, and first of all, I own the Salewa boot. I'm on my second pair. I love these boots. They're fantastic. But on the wall, when you walk up to that boot, it looks really, really beefy. And if you don't pick it up, you'll think that boot is heavy. But that boot is really no more heavy than a high top sneaker, and it's hard to believe that boot is so light.
Picking up between the two, I can almost tell, I can tell that this oboe is a little bit lighter, but the Salewa is not that much heavier, and you can tell just the overall materials. You're getting a lot more protection overall in a boot like this. And it's funny you talk about your tires and everything. I use that analogy so much when I'm talking about boots. And it's kind of like trucks, because I drive a Nissan Frontier, and it is shaped like a truck. It does have a truck bed. It doesn't like to carry gravel, and then you kind of bump up to the Tacoma, and you've got that mid-level. That's where you start getting into some of this stuff. Is like Tacoma's a little more capable, and then you bump up to your F250, which is some of the heavier backpacking boots. They're just got a bit more suspension. They can handle more weight. And it may be a little rougher ride when it's not loaded down, but it'll make more sense in the long term when you're putting it to work in its intended environment.
Well, and I'll use this. This is where I get to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I completely stole this from Dawson Wheeler. So, and if he wasn't here, just be clear, I would totally not give him credit. But since he's here, he knows I'm lying.
You have to.
Please stroke my ego.
Here we go. If you find a pair of shoes that you like and that are magic to your feet, buy more than one pair. Is that not right, Dawson?
Well, absolutely. And when you go on a trip, one of the things that I really like, when I'm going on a multi-day trip that I'm going to day hike and come back and say van camp or camp in a state campground somewhere, front country camping, and I've been out, I want to start my day the next day with a dry pair of shoes. And so, once I find a piece of footwear that works for me, I typically go ahead and buy a second pair and potentially even a third pair, because tragically, manufacturers have the tendency to want to change or tweak something. And sometimes those tweaks don't always make the boot fit the same year over year over year. So, I mean,
We
what do
have
you
this
think?
conversation all the time, and it's especially bad in running shoes and runners. You go through more footwear when you're running consistently, and the advice is if you find a pair of shoes that you like, get more than one pair. And I tell this to healthcare professionals as well when they're looking at Hokas and some other shoes that you can be on your feet all day. But if you alternate your footwear day to day, each pair is going to last longer. And a lot of times you won't realize that your shoes are worn out by the appearance of the uppers. It's what happens in the midsole, and you get used to it so much over time, you don't realize you're not getting the support that you used to get. So having a fresh pair of shoes is very important, but also having more than one that you can rotate will make each last longer. And 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 without question, every year that there's a full update on a shoe, it's gonna ruin you because I went through this with my trail runners last year. I went through two pair, and the manufacturer updated it to a new model, and now it's not an option for me because the fit is totally different, and I'm kind of back to the drawing board on needing to find a new shoe. So yeah, and I've known people to stock up. If somebody hears the company's going out of business and it's their favorite shoe, they'll go online and buy everything that they can find in that particular shoe just because they want to keep them in rotation.
And
Well,
just I was just gonna say, who would have known, Dawson and Josh, when we were 15 and 13, we would have emotional attachment to the shoes. You know what I'm saying? When you're 12 and 13 and 15, you're wearing your shoes. Now that we're this age, we're like, dude, I got to get more shoes. I got to have this shoe. We're emotionally attached.
well, and to that end, and I want to talk later about socks, but I have favorite socks, favorite brands, and favorite socks, and of course, Jim Markley and the Stockwell guys. I am in love with Sockwell socks, and I know that Rock Creek has them down there on the wall, and they do address, kind of an active recovery in the way they fit, and they address plantar fasciitis as well in the way they cup and cover your foot. So, but Josh, to kind of wrap it up, the Rock Creek obviously has multi doors, and you've got footwear. You could go to you could get the same selection in Cleveland, Tennessee. You could get it out at Hamilton Place, there at the North Shore. Obviously, with the COVID and the social distancing, when you come in and fit, this is a good time to come in with a mask. You guys are masked up. You're going to get down and deal with people's feet. Uh, you're going to, but it really makes sense for footwear to buy that in person, don't you think?
Oh yeah, can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people who are like, I was winging it. I ordered a pair. Every time somebody comes in and even looks on the wall, they're like, I want to try this one on, and we're totally happy to bring that one out. But really, you're just taking a shot in the dark. Even reading reviews on fit is just rolling the dice. I mean, you're the only way to try. The only way to do it is to try them on in person, and it's not uncommon for me to have. Every once in a while, I'll get it right first try, and be like, "Here's your shoe." I'll bring out a second one to confirm it's the right shoe. But it's not uncommon to have four different shoes out in two different sizes each, trying to determine what the best fit is. And we manipulate footwear here in the sense that if it's a leather shoe, I've got a stretching bar that I can bump out some space for your fifth metatarsal, or if the big toe's rubbing a little bit on the side on that first metatarsal, bunion issue or something like that, we can customize footwear here as well. And there's even shims you can put in to help reduce volume underneath inserts, and so we can get a little custom. But yeah, it's having somebody hands on is key. Just buying a pair and going straight to the hike. I mean, you're just going to learn the hard way. You will learn, and you might get it right, but you also may not know what you're looking for.
I know everybody is always concerned about price,
Mm-hmm.
but you guys have been able through, you've got a membership
Yep.
as well. And so there's an opportunity for people to come in and take part in that. So they
Right.
get kind of an everyday low price. So can you tell us a little bit about the membership program that you guys have?
Yeah, the membership it's a $20 annual fee, and you have to renew it every year. But essentially, what the $20 fee gets you is 15% off anything that's not already discounted for a calendar year. So where that really makes
That's a great deal.
you start saving money after $130. So a lot of times what'll happen is we'll just sign somebody up and not even, if they're walking up to the counter with a $200 purchase, we'll just discount the order 15%, add the $20 fee, and then every time you come back from that point on, you get 15% off. So it's a great way to not have to waste your time trying to price shop everywhere, and you can get professional help and not be concerned that you're not getting the best price. Because if you're planning on coming back, and Chattanooga is a great example of like just kind of limited retail in the downtown area. From all of our clothing, we just see so many customers who want sustainable clothing. They can rely on the warranties these brands offer, and just have somebody they know that they can talk to. And on top of that, you're saving the 15%. It's a cool way to do business and partner with the community.
Did I see something the other day or read something online that you're doing something with the healthcare professionals as well? Is there an offer for healthcare professionals right now?
Yeah, healthcare professionals are getting 20% off their footwear purchases, and I'll have to double check, but I think we're doing a similar promotion that North Face has been running, but don't quote me on that one. But I think there's another promotion that we're running as well. But we're basically doing everything we can. The other day I was helping out a lady who really needed a couple of pairs of shoes, and we're going to make it worth your while, especially if you're somebody in the trenches day to day. We're going to make sure you're getting taken care of. So we're no strangers to going above and beyond to make sure that somebody gets what they deserve.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Clint?
Well, before we wrap it up and tell everybody to, go to the website or go to your Facebook page or just come on down to the Rock Creek on North Shore, I want to make sure too everybody forgets. And, this happens with every year. It's also coming up on Father's Day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just throwing it out there. If we talk about Mother's Day 11 months after, out from it. Father's Day gets a couple of weeks notice. If you want to get your dad a Father's Day gift or a gift card or something, I'm sure that's something that you're okay with, right, Josh?
Yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite games to play. Is show me all the things that you want and think are cool, and I'll pile them up.
Oh, that sounds good. I like that deal. I like that special. All right, so Dawson, do you want to end with anything?
All the doors are open.
Yeah.
Cleveland, all the Chattanooga locations, Nashville, Tennessee's open, and
Cool Springs Galleria in Franklin, yeah.
And the Ocoee River's open, right?
Ocoee's open.
Weekends, yeah.
Yeah, you can go see Jamie, catch up with Jamie.
Yeah, and we had Sonny Montgomery on our podcast, and you can see Jamie, and then you can go across the street after 2 p.m. to her taco truck.
Yes.
And get a taco and a cold beer, and come back
I'm ready.
over to the pavilion at Rock Creek and have lunch and do some shopping there as well, right?
And if you want to, Josh, they could just put it on speaker on their phone and listen to the Day Fire podcast where Sunny's out there. She's on our podcast with us. It seems like the best of both worlds. Rock Creek, beer, tacos, podcast. I like it.
I'd say that's winning.
Yep.
Hey, can we get you back next week? We'll just kind of make it a regular thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for your time today.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We're going to wrap this one up. Thank you, Josh. Thanks, Dawson. Go check out our podcast that's out today, dayfirepodcast.com, and we'll see everybody later. Bye.
Have a good
See
day.
ya.
Bye-bye.